Tonight's talk continues Proud's series of events about social connectedness and building community through dialogue. Personal isolation and separation from community became especially poignant as we sequestered during the COVID epidemic. Since then, Proud has held 2 discussions on the Surgeon General's report on the importance of social connections and the effects on loneliness and health. We had a workshop by the Justice Fleet on social media, and last year, tonight's presenter guided us through storytelling for social change. With his participation throughout our 2014 Oak Park Conference, this is the 6th time that Dr. Gerhardt has shared his expertise with us, and we really appreciate your frequent contributions. Dr. Michael Gerhardt is an assistant professor of social work at UMSL. He received his PhD in 2017 from Case Western Reserve University. His research focuses on collective actions in communities, the relationship between the criminal justice system and communities, and equity and inclusion. He is currently collecting data on residents' perceptions of the developments in Ferguson, with an emphasis on police-resident relationships. I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Gerhardt.
Thank you. I'm glad to keep coming back. Thank you for inviting me. I guess that means things are going okay.
It's going.
It's going, fill in the blank. Well, we're going to be talking about active listening today. Anybody who wants to say what, like you didn't hear me, now's the time.
What?
Thank you. Okay, it's out of our system. We're good to go. Got a little bit of administrative stuff at the top. We'll talk about what active listening is, walk you through like a structure to a conversation that can really help with active listening and helping people feel heard. Y'all will have time to practice with each other, and then we will call it a day. So on the next slide, I'm going to have some questions for y'all to reflect on. You're going to have 2 minutes, just you yourself. Think about those questions. Then you'll pair up with somebody else and you will talk about it for 10 minutes, just the 2 of y'all. And then we'll bring it back as a group and you'll talk about what you talked about as a whole. Right? So I want you to put yourself in a place where you really felt heard. You were talking with somebody and they got you. And I want you to think about, what did it look like? Like, what did that person do that made you feel heard? Like you could see that they were actually paying attention. What did it sound like in terms of how much were they doing the talking? And what did they say to you that made you feel it and hear and go, they are actually paying attention to me? And then the last question is like, what does it feel like to be heard? And so these are the questions I want you to think about. And like I said before, it'll be 2 minutes, just you yourself reflecting on a time where you felt heard. And then talk with somebody else for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back as a group for the next 10 minutes. I'm glad I haven't lost my ability to like constructively eavesdrop on a class, so I've been hearing some murmurings, a lot of good stuff, a lot of interesting things. So as a group, when y'all were talking about what did it look like, what was the other person doing that like made you know they were listening? What were they doing?
Eye contact.
So we got eye contact. We got 3 for eye contact, all in one. Is that in the back? 4 for eye contact.
Yeah.
Being quiet.
We got quiet.
Responding with acknowledging what you were saying, what was being said.
The level of acknowledgement. And I noticed that you're nodding your head and everybody around you listening is nodding your head. Isn't there like when somebody is actually paying attention to you, there's a bit of like, just something to let you know that they were engaged.
Right, I mean, drawn to her because she was explaining something.
Because I've had those experiences where I'm teaching and I turn around and it's nothing but blank stares and I'm like, y'all are silent and you're looking at me, but I think I lost you, right? There's just like subtle way that folks let you know. Am here. Am paying attention. We touched on it a little bit with the idea of like they acknowledge you, but what does it sound like when somebody is paying attention to you? So I think you said when they, what was that?
The voice is respectful. There's an even tone there. It's not condescending and it's not challenging. It's an even sound. It's a peaceful sound.
Yeah.
And they're not singing silence is gold.
Unless they can really sing well, in which case it's sometimes appreciated, but there is this even tone. What are those two words?
They are quiet and are very attentive.
Quiet and very attentive.
They ask relevant questions.
They're asking questions that tap on what you were actually talking about. So you're like, I'm speaking in this vein. You asked a question to learn more. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, clarifying questions.
Yeah.
Facial expression
Ooh, what are the facial expressions like?
of concern, concern.
Going with the nonverbal cues, because I think you made the face, I kind of made the face while we were doing. We all like kind of just,
Mhm.
It's not always with the hand on the chin, but there's just something going on in the face where it's like I am actually dialed in.
Tone of voice.
We got tone of voice. What's it like? Because we got even keeled, and that's not like. I was like, what does it look like to you? What does that tone of voice sound like?
Well, you can tell when somebody's comment is earnest.
Mhm.
It's, how do you say, rising tone. You can just tell that whether they really want to know.
It's something coming from in here when they speak.
I had a question about that. So are you speaking of the deliverer or the receivers when you talk about tone?
Well, it could be either one, depends on who's speaking, because, receiving is like, you respond to something somebody said.
But the tones are different, could possibly be different.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get to.
I got one. Respecting the response, even if you don't agree with it.
That's power.
That's the one. Mhm.
Feelings are valid, real, and they ought to be respected. So just because somebody's like, I had a bad day and here's why. In the back of your head, if you're like, oh, this doesn't seem like a big deal, you're still there for them and you validate it. Because we all have that one thing that in the grand scheme of the universe, we know isn't a big deal, but it still gets us going from 0 to 100 whenever it happens. Just because the thing that happened to them isn't that thing for you, doesn't mean it doesn't matter to them. They told you, I care about this. And so you need to validate, yes, you do. What does it feel like to be heard?
Feels good.
What does good look like for you? Like, what does good feel like? What is it like? What do you mean?
That I had achieved something.
So there's a level of achievement and like fulfillment,
Mhm.
even if you're the one sharing.
Yes.
Value.
Yes.
You feel valued,
Respected,
respected.
relieved.
Ooh, you feel relieved,
Yeah, similarly, it reduces stress.
less stress. I have a burden shared is a burden have. Any other feelings?
Oh, a feeling of, what is that word? Optimism,
You walk away from it feeling better than
Yeah.
you went in.
optimistic, like there's a solution. Just because we heard each other. Kind of like in a marriage or any relationship.
And even if we don't come to that perfect agreement, there is this value of like we respected each other.
Right, we know where to go.
And like even if we don't agree, I now know better about where you're coming from. And I felt like you listened to where I'm coming from.
And so you feel hopeful.
Right?
That's so good.
Because we're coming together, we're trying to meet each other somewhere in the middle. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 is perfect. How would you rate your active listening skills while you're prepared? I'm going to go through 1 through 10. When I call out your number, put your hand up. When I move on to the next number, put it down. How many of y'all would rate yourself a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nice. Just like the vibe check and see where everybody's at. Because there was a lot of good listening going on here. I also think it's important to stress that like active listening, we were talking about the facial expressions, the making eye contact, the paying attention. I think it takes effort to do that. There's a reason why in this exercise, like we did a lot of active listening, but but sometimes in our day-to-day lives, we don't. It's because it's hard. It's because you actually have to be attentive, be present, be there. It's like sprinting. I can run, not as much as I used to because I got a 9-month-old baby and that has like kept me homebound. But like I'm not running everywhere because that's exhausting. And I think it is okay to acknowledge that active listening is a skill. It is a muscle and it needs to be practiced and trained to get better at it. And I really stress on that last question, like, what does it feel like? Because I ended my last presentation with this quote. You may not have remembered that entire conversation you had with that person when they were listening to you. You may remember pieces of advice or something that really hit you in the heart when they were talking. You may not remember that conversation perfectly, but you remember they made you feel a certain way. And I think that is one of the most powerful parts of active listening. Because if you go out and you listen to somebody about where they're coming from, and then they see you in the community, they draw on some of that feeling again. And so if you go out and do that, and then you're like, hey, we're having an event, they'd be like, you know what? I really like the way we talk. I like the way we have that conversation. I may actually show up on a Tuesday night. Is that what happened here? All right. Now, I don't know if this is a good definition of active listening, but I like to think of it as we're trying to make people feel heard. And y'all touched on a lot of the buzzwords. Like you said, earnest, but it's authentic. We listen because we actually care about you. We really want to know where you're coming from and try to connect on that feeling kind of level. We want you to feel heard and feel felt because we're trying to build these connections. And I think my one disclaimer for today that I'm going to touch on multiple times is like when we're doing this on PowerPoint slides, it feels very academic, very, I don't know, sterile. But when we're doing active listening, I am assuming that we do it because we actually care. So you all decided to dedicate a Tuesday night to come here. I'm assuming you all care in good faith. I train social workers as my job. We get into social work because we actually care about people. So I am assuming good intent on the group. Is that a good assumption? Perfect. It's my 6th time here. I think I got that figured out now. I think one of the most important things to touch on is active silence. Because y'all were talking and I heard like they sounded, it was quiet, but it wasn't like checked out quiet. When you're really listening, you're not waiting for your turn to talk. You are intentionally being quiet. You're not checked out, you're working in here. And so when you're active silence, I think you're paying attention to not just like what the person is saying, not just the facts of what they're talking about, but in your head, you're thinking about what is what they're saying say about what they value or what do they care about, right? They are saying this stuff. What does this mean about what they value? What are they feeling in this moment, in this time? And what are they needing? Right? We're not just silent, we're paying attention. And I think there is a difference between those things. So last time I was here, we did storytelling and I shared a story about why neighborhood safety matters for me. And my story related to, I had a conversation with a Ferguson resident scheduled, and then she had to reschedule because a kid down the road is a victim of random gun violence. And she's like, I just need space. And I'm like, got it. All the time, all the space you need. But when we eventually sat down, she said something to the effect of, we need the police. I don't want my daughter to become a statistic. So that's the statement that she made. What's she saying?
I'm afraid.
She's saying she's afraid. What does she value? Based on this,
Police,
she values the police. What else?
safety,
Safety.
her daughter.
Her daughter, right? She's talking about a whole bunch of stuff that she cares about. It's just 2 sentences. I had to double check. It's 2 sentences, but she's saying a lot. What do you think she's feeling? So we got scared.
Angry.
We got scared. We got angry.
Helpless.
What was that?
Helpless.
Helpless. Powerless. What do you think she needs? She doesn't, well, I say she doesn't explicitly say it, but like she does talk about stuff that she needs, but she says the police. What else? It's already got thrown out in this room. Somebody said it.
Fear. She needs
But what
some
does she need? She needs hope,
Encouragement.
encouragement. She said she needed safety was another word that came up.
She needs to take a minute, hold on.
Just decompress a bit. So how do we show her that we're paying attention to that? On the previous slide, we just picked up like she's feeling stuff, she's needing stuff, she cares about stuff. How do we show her?
Asking, is there anything that we can do? If nothing else, just listening to what she is saying, even if it sounds like it's rambling, it sounds like she might just need to get some things out.
Those are good follow-ups. But again, with all the stuff that we lifted up here, how do we show her that we're thinking about that?
We let the police know they need.
Not- It's right now, it is me and her in a room together, right here, right now.
Okay.
How am I supposed to show her that I'm actually paying attention to like what she cares about and what she wants? You had your hand up.
Physically, what we talked about earlier, eye contact, body language, being supportive, showing her that, you know, like, as you said, it's just you and I in the room now, I'm here for you. Reassurance.
Still paying attention, not doom scrolling, not getting lost. This is a very intense and meaningful moment. And I want to be in that. And then you were about to say something.
Well, I would always tell my neighbors or something, I'm here for you. You know, feel free to talk to me. I'm listening, comfort them, reassure, like they were saying the words, same words. But I do that on a regular basis with my neighbors because a bunch of single people around, so we try to keep connected. And sometimes they do need to hear from other people that we share some of the same fears and challenges in our life. So,
So you're trying to connect and saying, I hear you,
mhm.
I share your concerns.
I once said to a woman in distress, if you were my daughter, I'd put my hand on your shoulder. But I'm not going to. So why don't you think of somebody who loves you that's got their hand on your shoulder right now?
Nice. Because that's comforting. Now I want us to walk back to the reflections that we did at that time we felt heard. What did they say that made you feel heard?
Sometimes it's repeating back what they,
Right? They say, they basically almost repeat back what you said. But they include those tidbits, they include pieces of what you value, what you care about. I think paraphrasing is a really powerful way to not just tell folks I'm listening to you, but showing them. It's not just I am listening to you, it's I can sense what you're feeling. I hear you're stressed, I hear you're frustrated, and that's what connects with people. And there's a lot of useful starting points. I think when we were in a group, somebody said like what I'm hearing is my personal favorite, like as a social worker, we have thousands of these paraphrasing statements. My favorite one is if I'm hearing you right, or if I'm hearing the group. There's a lot of different ways to show that you're going to paraphrase. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is check in with that other person. We're going to show them, hey, I am listening to you, but I also want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Right? And it's in that process of checking to see that I'm hearing things correctly and them potentially checking us where connection actually happens.
I'm sorry, that's good. Because people hear what they want to hear. And not necessarily what is being said. And they will, it's good to have the repeating back because I've had people say, now you said, and I was like, no, I didn't say that. And to get that understanding is, I think that's really key. I'm glad that I'm saying that.
Because it's like if you're not active listening, it's just that I'm here, I'm listening to you for me.
Yeah.
Or even like I'm just like here and I'm not actually paying attention to you. But when I am actually listening to you, it's I want to make sure I hear you. I want to make sure we connect. I want to make sure that we are in this together. So it's not a one-sided thing. And it's really important that we do that because that's where stuff happens. That's where like the magic of this actually happens. So what did I call this? Foundation of community building or something? Like that's where community building actually happens. I don't remember the name of the title of my own presentation. The point being, when you don't just tell people I'm hearing, but you show them, it hits different. And that's what we're trying to do. Not tell people they're being heard, but show them so they feel it. And so when paraphrasing values, the person said, I want my daughter to be safe, or I don't want something to happen to my daughter. So in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, you really care about your daughter. But when somebody is talking about anything, you can think about what does this say about what they care about? If they're like, I really like my neighborhood because we do things for each other, we cut each other's grass, yada yada. Like, okay, you really care about that connection. You really care about knowing who you talk to. Whenever folks start talking about stuff, they're saying, these are things that I value. And so active silence is paying attention to that so we can lift it up and make folks feel heard and be like, I actually paid attention to you. When it's paraphrasing feelings, if they say a feeling, congratulations, the hard part's done. Agree with it. So that is frustrating. Or if say something similar, if they're like, I am tired, you go, oh, that's exhausting. I'm worried. Oh, you're scared. Like, pay attention to the feeling words that they use and then put a spin on it. Acknowledge it. Feelings are valid, real, and respected. If they don't say a feeling explicitly, go out on a limb. Because we did that as a group, right? We were like scared, hopeless, powerless. You can just say that's blank. You can just put a name on the feeling that they didn't say. And we'll get to why that's okay. Some of y'all might be like, well, what if they aren't feeling that? Don't worry, we'll get there. And paraphrasing needs, so she explicitly said, we need the police. But in the back of my head, I said, are we just talking about police or are we talking about something bigger? Are we talking about safety more broadly? And police is just the way we got into this because our conversations were already geared towards the police. I don't know if that's how she feels. So when I paraphrase, I'm just going to put safety in there and see if that vibes with her. And so when we're paraphrasing, when we're actively silent, we're paying attention to what, not just what they're saying, but what their words mean in terms of what they care about, what they're feeling, and what they might be needing. And so in that room, when she said, we need the police, I don't want my daughter to become a statistic, I said, that's terrifying. You and your daughter deserve to feel safe. And she said, basically agreed with that. And I'm like, so what does safe look like for you? Because we're really trying to understand the other person's perspective. The world is full of very broad and vague terms. I know safe means free from danger in some way, shape, or form, but I don't know what it means for you.
That's good because you may be dealing with someone that may have some other issues going on where they may need help in other areas, and determining that right then and there is actually a way you're listening to see, okay, is the police an issue, or are you a person that might need a little help? Now, not to say that disrespectfully or to down a situation, but if you truly want to listen and help someone, you're going to try to understand them. If that is the case, or if it's not, acknowledging, not making it into something you may want to hear and say, oh, well, it may be just what he said and where you are.
And if I don't ask this question, we don't open the door to that. Do I need a little more help?
Yes.
Or do I get to tell you what safe looks like to me? Because having conversations around public safety in neighborhoods, it's like, we need more police, we need less police. We need police to learn to interact with us. We need to learn to interact with the police. Sometimes safety, the thing that comes up the most, neighborhood safety, traffic. Because that is everywhere. It is dangerous. It is like doing 75 and a 25. Most people have, y'all, in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm originally from, stop signs aren't optional.
Well,
I'm I moved here and I'm like, oh, okay. No, but like that's a very real danger. So if I don't ask what does safe look like, I'm gonna go, oh, whatever my definition of safety is what she meant. And that's not okay because we're trying to understand where they're coming from. And so always ask follow-ups. And I think when I go back through my own notes and my own conversations and I'm reflecting on what could I have done better, usually there's a word like that where I was like, oh, I should have followed up on it. And I make a note of it for next time. Because we're all trying to get better at this active listening thing because nobody does it perfectly every conversation, every time, and that's okay. Now, with that response that I had, I went on a few limbs. It's not that risky to assume that a mother loves her daughter. Now that I have my own daughter, I get it. But I took a guess on how she might be feeling, and I took a guess on that safe word. You might be talking about more than just police, you may be talking about safety. And I said, what if you're wrong about the feeling? So what if I am wrong?
Acknowledge it, or give yourself the room to realize
How will I realize that I'm off about the feeling?
by paying attention to who you're talking to and listening in the conversation, going back and forth, the responses, what they're saying, and the interpretation of it, or if you don't understand, just like not do anything that would until you do.
We'll go 1 and then 2.
Okay, so most people have a body language or a way that you know that you're coming off in a offensive way, or you totally wrong with the conversation. So I would say read their body language, read their face. Like I don't have a poker face. So you would totally be able to know what I'm thinking with my face. So don't be stuck in your bubble. Pay attention to that person, no matter if they say it or not. And you can also come back with it like, am I understanding this correctly? I want to make sure we're on the same page.
So if you're actively listening, you're not just paying attention to the words, you're also looking at the other person. Remember, we talked about eye contact.
Mhm.
So if I do get a cue like that, I'm like, okay, that's something we need to sort of go back and check on.
Mhm.
Because clearly that hit a certain way. You had your hand up as well.
No,
No?
I was just thinking,
If you give the people the space to say, no, that's not what I was feeling, and then you validate, well, tell me more about what this means to you. It's when you jump off, well, I know that's what you feel, that's when you cut off the
there's a
communication.
disconnect.
They might shut down.
When you're active listening and you go on a limb like that, you're probably going to be in the ballpark, probably in the right section, just not the right seat. And people respect that. So if I go, that's terrifying, she's like, no, I'm just kind of worried. They'll correct you. And I think that's okay because correcting is connecting. It's like, I am paying attention to you and I'm trying to understand you. I'm checking in with you when I paraphrase. If I'm off, they're going to say, no, that's not quite. If I'm right, they're like, cool, we're already there. If I'm wrong, they're going to say, oh, that's not exactly it. It's more like this. And we're building that understanding with each other. Because again, assuming good intent, assuming you're actually paying attention to the person, you're not going to throw a feeling out there that's going to jar somebody in completely the wrong direction. It's going to be a good faith attempt of I'm actually trying to understand you, and they're going to see that. And they will actually lean in and correct. And so I do say that is okay. So we just went through active silence, paying attention to not just the words, but what those words mean about that person. If you have any questions?
What would you say if the role, people know how to play roles, especially with things that we're dealing with. People know how to say what needs to be said and heard in order to play the role. What would you say? as a active listener. How would you? Um, when you realize or suspect that that is the case, where you are expressing that, it looks as if I'm being heard, but we know, or I suspect, it could be that this may not be the environment that necessarily wants to hear me. Um, what do you say would be a good, well, maybe active silence? Maybe I'm answering my own question. Active silence, I guess that's where active silence would kick in, where you would just and acknowledge whatever that situation is, how they feel through their actions, behaviors, gestures, or whatnot. And become actively silent. Guess I just answered.
It's a blend and it's context specific because it can vary on the person and the situation too. Because I mean, we talked a lot about authenticity. So I think sometimes when you create space for authenticity, the folks who are the most likely to, based on my experience in the great state of Ohio, like we had a Republican governor. He was one of the last guys to drop out of the Republican presidential election. Folks who were organizing around Medicaid expansion went to his office and they just asked him, so how do you feel about this? And he said, I'm a Republican. I cannot champion Medicaid expansion because of its connection to Obama. But if y'all get the signature, you are not going to meet organized opposition from my office. We got the signatures, it got passed. And so like when you create space for authenticity, you can sometimes have those moments where somebody is just like, look, I have a professional thing that I have to do. Like I have to be this professionally, but nobody really pays attention if I don't resist anything. So you go ahead and get that done. So you do have spaces like that sometimes. And I'm using examples from office because that tends to be where I've noticed a lot of bottlenecks happen where people say what they need to cover themselves. If that is the case and it is a persistent issue and you've tried to do the authentic active listening piece, I say active listening to people in their constituency, and then you will identify what are the things that they actually need, want, and care about. And when you get enough of those voices together, they realize, oh, you're not doing the things that we actually care about. Ella Baker's community organizing and across the country, the best thing she did, she like never told people what she's like, so what's bothering you? Like that was the start of her work. Just listening to what was bothering people. And then you had enough people in the room talking about what was bothering them. Like, oh, we're all bothered by the same thing. And then they were all like, yeah, it's massive structural racism. Am I on recording in the state of Missouri on that? But like you got enough people together and they started connecting the dots of we all have these shared problems and the folks in power aren't doing anything about it. And that's how you build a coalition for essentially votes. That's how you create change. Is that like that rambling do anything for you?
My thoughts were churning. I think, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I think when you active listen to enough people, you start to see connections and themes. And again, those themes are what we want to build community around to try and address and do. And I think that's powerful.
But there are some situations, as we well know, where that list is not.
Mhm.
And I just think at the active side, sometimes not saying. When you're not, if it's not, sometimes grandma used to say, sometimes you're just not saying than it don't. So with that being said, because we're in we have a lot of stuff going on. Just in general, everywhere or whatnot. And we still just being in this room, just listening to you and all of this that is a help source and something coming together to be useful, taking out what we can to make an effective difference.
Mhm.
Knowing when your contribution is just not valued.
Yeah.
I think that is it's like a knowing when to bow out gracefully in situations to keep things positive, on a positive note. I'm just saying, because we have a lot of disagreeing going on. And just knowing when not to, if you're just not going to agree.
Mhm.
You can listen, and then here we go. I don't agree.
Mhm.
And then bam, shebang, it's off and running to the races. I just think it needs to be, a tactful acknowledging of, okay, you know what? It's just not going to work in this, situation, acknowledging yourself, not being heard. And, acknowledging my energy is just not, I just need to pull it back and let people be who they are,
Mhm.
where they are. Because they're allowed that. I think that's just something that I feel if can be implemented in our differences, it would make things a lot more peaceful for us all. Because there's a lot of stuff going on to keep the peace that I see. With listening, like, and I wanna stay on the topic, but like with the police or whatnot, there's so much going on and there's so many people trying to create their own remedies and little clips and this and that to make sure, even with the signals, when there's someone maybe irate or needs to be watched or reprimanded or just there's just so much that is going on with us as people. We don't have time to listen to each other because we're all on defense mode. Fight or flight.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And is it one of those things where,
you lucky you got a new baby to focus on. It keeps you grounded and happy.
kind of, but then I look at the world and I'm like,
I
yeah,
know.
I'm sorry, we gotta do better for you.
I appreciate you.
No, but sometimes the saying what we need to do or saying what we have to get by is we don't wanna have the conversations, cause we know they're there to be had. But if we start having them, then we have to acknowledge we need to do something about it.
Mhm.
Or we can't ignore it anymore and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yes, sir.
Oh, it takes some.
Oh, okay.
I like my yard.
I run into a situation where we have some people in the community who are looking at a different time and place that I don't see as ever having really existed. But they want things to be that way again. And I really have no use for it. And I've been pretty terrible about not listening to be said to some of these individuals, and then kind of telling them, hey, I have nothing to do with this. My opinion is, me and Tim have worked on several things over the years. You go out there and you find some way to make your community better. If you don't sit there and whine and complain about how something isn't the way it was, and if you talk to people from that period of time, that wasn't that great then anyway.
So there's a saying, the golden age for anything is 13. Right? When we look back on anything with nostalgia glasses, no matter what it actually was like, you're like, that was awesome. And then you go back, like some of the things you can revisit, like media, and you're like, yeah, why did I like that?
Yeah.
But there is some of that out there. We'll get to ways to have constructive conversations, to not get stuck in the past or get stuck in complaints about, but looking forward and moving forward.
Okay, I would like to ask you if you was gonna touch on when you're talking to a person or a group, how to address those individually? Because a lot of people does not include the people in the room. They always focus on one or maybe two people, and the other people feel left out. Do you cover that kind of area?
We'll talk a little bit about structuring a conversation. A lot of that is more one-on-one, but if it is not what you're looking for, if it doesn't hit, or if you want me to come back for another
Look,
thing,
we here now.
I'll come back.
Yeah, but we here now. You have made yourself, you look around the room, you are including us in your conversation. So when you're in a group setting, do you ever touch on that? Because you are displaying that now.
So part of it
Some
is,
people don't.
so part of it is also paying attention to the folks that are in the room and like who's talking, who isn't, who potentially raised a hand, which is why like every time anybody does a little flinch, I just want to make sure like, was that a hand?
Mhm.
And then there are times to draw it off, like, I've noticed, Alan, you've been quiet, or we talk every Friday. So, so it's one of those things, but you can check in, you can be attentive. Who's quiet? Who might be quiet and why? And look, sometimes folks are just quiet. Like, I'm always somebody where I'm like, if everybody has said what I was kind of gonna say, I'm just not gonna say it anyways. But like, so it is okay to respect that sometimes folks don't like that pressure.
Mhm.
But then also afterwards, like follow up with folks and be like, so how was it? How are you? And like do that on the individual level because not everybody's okay with the group.
But you are the subject of a lady saying she's afraid for her daughter.
Mhm.
You didn't state that she was talking to an individual
Oh,
or a group.
she was talking to me. Okay.
But I'm just saying, if it was you and your wife and she only spoke to you, your wife would feel excluded.
Mhm.
That's the point that I was trying to get across.
Okay. Okay, so like my wife and I are there in that conversation. She's only talking to me.
She's looking directly at you in conversation. The wife is there too.
Yeah.
Probably experiencing the same thing that you are, but she's not including her because she's focusing eye contact with you.
Mhm.
Do you display that to the people that you are training?
So
How to include people in the conversation?
in that situation, you can like look to my wife and she would hate me if I did this, so I wouldn't. But like obviously if you know the person you're with and they don't talk about it. Like her family was like, don't raise any conflictual conversations. So she would like fade away in the background. But you could go, oh, so yeah, this is actually something that my wife cares about a lot too. And then bring her in that way.
Okay.
So like if you know them, especially if you know the person you're with, you can just give them a natural lead in or a segue. And afterwards you can debrief as a group too. And like, so my wife and I were just like, didn't you find that weird that she just looked at me and talked to me the whole time? You're the smart one. I'm the credentialed one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that a lot of times if I'm speaking with someone who has different ideas than I do about something, and I can't come to terms with necessarily that viewpoint, but I still want to appreciate the fact that they're expressing to me what they think and how they feel. So it's still okay for me to say, well, thank you for sharing that. But another thing that sometimes is effective is to say, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more, because I think sometimes when people start talking, they either talk themselves out of something or they find we really didn't have a good reason for saying that, a valid logical, so continuing the conversation and over time, perhaps you can come to a point where you could settle into a more meaningful or productive conversation with the person that you might think you never could. I don't know, but it's so hard.
Well, there's power in you're not who I was told you were. Right? Because as a university professor, I am a radical leftist trying to indoctrinate the youth for anarchy and whatever else it is. The radical leftist. Yeah. But it's one of those situations where it's like, oh wait, we can sit down and actually have a conversation, and you're not gonna like, I don't know, tear down the establishment with me like immediately. I thought that's all you did. And it's like, no, we can sit and talk. Because what that does, again, we're thinking about feelings, we're thinking about connecting. If it's like they were wrong about you, what if they're wrong about other people that they generalize about? And once it doesn't always happen that first connection or that first meeting with every person. But the more we can do that, I think the better off we're going to be as a people and as a society. Because it's like, it's a lot harder to hate on people to say all folks are blank. When you're like, but I know you. And you're not like that.
Can I?
Absolutely.
How I just felt. And with her statement, I mean, we allow someone to elaborate and they can talk themselves out of. And if you're actively listening to something and you want to make them feel valued, I don't understand talking means. It's almost like getting them to talk so it can talk their word out of something. I don't know, that just kind of that make me feel like if I was in a conversation and I was talking, rambling, whatever, it would be a safe conversation.
So I wanna, oh, absolutely.
Oh, I was gonna say something on that. I think, when you're, one example is like talking to the public, you can talk to a person long enough where they basically had a conversation with themselves. So it could be, they started off this way, and by the end of the conversation, they have changed their whole topic, and you're like, wait a minute. I'm talking to two people in one body. I don't know how to respond. So I think that way of what she said is, talking themselves out of it. It's just that they basically had a conversation with themselves and they might not need you to respond. That might just been a conversation they had to say out loud. And they need a person there so they don't look crazy.
Yes.
So,
that sounds like venting.
yes, yes.
So people just need space to vent, and then you let them vent.
And I wanna bring up, cause it's, we don't have the conversation so that we can get somebody to talk themselves out of their own viewpoint, but if you actively listen, sometimes they do this weird thing, they listen to themselves. And that's not why we have these conversations, but that is one of the things that can happen, because we're not immediately reacting, we're not immediately going back and forth, we're creating space to pay attention to each other. And then sometimes the folks pay attention to themselves and they go, oh, that doesn't sound right.
That makes a lot of sense. People need space to acknowledge that they're wrong, or their thinking needs to change, or should be different, or is biased, or, that's important.
And so what we're doing is authentically listening, and sometimes radical stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that paraphrasing and just repeating back what they've said, this is when they start hearing themselves and they go, oh, is that really what I said? That's not what I meant.
Right.
And it's just simply reflecting back what they said. Sometimes does get them to listen to themselves a little bit better. Okay, I don't know, and I don't know if this is going a different direction from where you intended, but dealing with the situation where you're seeing contradictions between what somebody says they mean and what they actually do and follow up on. Where does that, not let's say confrontational, but where does that acknowledgement of contradiction fit into this?
So somebody says something and does something different.
Or is it, they say one thing, they sound sincere, and then they turn around and they're not.
Sometimes they mean, don't bother me with facts.
That's true.
I look at the state of the world and I'm thinking of my daughter and I go, oh no. I think part of it is they don't want to be bothered with the facts. It's not a scientific rule, but like sometimes folks say there's 15, 15, 70. 15% of folks are gonna be over there no matter what, 15% are gonna be over there no matter what. 70 is gonna be somewhere in the middle with varying levels of willingness to figure it out. So if you're dealing with that, I would argue like somebody's in that 15% where it's like, I'm gonna say the public stuff well, but then behind the scenes, I'm gonna do whatever. I think if you do, again, you engage enough people around what do you care about in this community, in this neighborhood. And then it becomes a collective fact of like, hey, we are all on board with this is what we want. You notice that they're not doing it. And then people get that click. Again, it's about community building. It can also, that community can be moved to do things. Because if you're like, hey, we all talked, and they're not doing the stuff that we want. I mean, that's why we have elections.
On what they do, would probably be one of the questions or things to put on the list. Because what people say and what they do may contradict.
Well, and part of it is I would argue the folks who are very intentionally saying the right things and doing something different. Active listening may not be the best thing for them. And so it is active listen with folks around who are directly affected by that stuff and hear their stories, hear their needs, and then mobilize and organize around that. We got to listen to people. And sometimes people, when they listen or you listen to them, and you're like, oh, I know you're going to do what they do, whatever. It's like, cool, I now know that about you when we enter conversations. And so maybe they're not the best partner to work within that capacity. And I think that's okay. I think by default, we cut people off too soon. But if it's a pattern of behavior, you go, okay, cool. This person may not be the best partner for this. Let's just organize with the folks who actually want to be part of something bigger. We touched on a lot of this already. We'll get to the how to structure a conversation. The point being, we don't listen just to paraphrase. We don't listen just so somebody talks themselves out. We listen to folks because we actually care. We paraphrase and we repeat what they say because we want to make sure that we're hearing them right. That's what we're trying to do. So how do we active listen? Sign up for my 16-week course. So active listening, I am in a school of social work, active listening, like we do have courses on that. So like, how do I boil it down in a way that is meaningful and effective? I'm gonna show you a general framework for having conversations that really open up opportunities to actively listen to what folks care about. I found it simple but effective. So when we're doing this around civic engagement, you have some folks who are like, I've actually formally ran for office, or I do social work, so like I actively listen. And then you have folks who are like, I'm an engineer, so active listening really wasn't part of my education, but I care. So when we're working with that broad of a group of people with varying experiences for active listening, this is what we focus on because I think it's accessible and it works pretty good. And so there's really 4 guiding questions that I teach folks about when you're having a conversation with folks in a community. Where are you at on a scale from 1 to 10 on whatever topic we're talking about? Why is that the right number for you? How do we move up one number? And you're not an extremist, why not? Now, I came across this way of structuring conversations later in life. So I was really skeptical, especially of that first one, because it feels really weird to be like, scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? But there is a pretty natural way to do it. Alan, you like living in Ferguson?
Yes.
Scale from 1 to 10, where are you at?
10.
Oh. No, but like, pepper people with a softball and then hit them with a scale. And it doesn't feel like that transactional type of an exercise. I'm like, oh, you've been working here how long? How's this a place to work? Scale from 1 to 10. And I think what that does to folks, and the reason why I start with that is it does a lot of really powerful stuff from a question and answer standpoint. Because if somebody, when I ask you what's the right number for you, if you're higher than 5, you're going to talk about here's all of the good things. Here's all of the stuff that I like. If you're lower than 5, you're like, here's the stuff I don't like. And so it is a nice neutral way to be like, how do you feel about this place? And then tell me a little bit more about that. You can also get folks really naturally talking about what are the immediate action items we should do. So I don't care if they're a 4 or a 6. I know 6, 7 is a thing. My daughter's too young to actually let me know what that is. So I am blissful ignorance for a little longer. But when I ask you, what do we got to do to move up one more number? They're going to talk about immediate action items, low-hanging fruit type stuff. This is things that we should be doing right now, but we're not. Yep.
So I have a question. So all of yours is more on the positive side. The world does not work like that. So let's say we're having a conversation and the conversation already starts off negative. And then I respond in a positive way, but the reaction, the conversation started negative, and that's where that person plans on staying, no matter how much active listening I'm doing or whatever my conversation is, it came negative. It was meant to stay that way. So this is great in the fake world. But I mean, like in the real world, you're gonna have people having a conversation with you and they really don't want to hear what you gotta say. They just trying to get it off their chest, and no matter what you say, they coming back with some more negative.
I talked to that guy.
But you can also get something from their conversation.
Yes.
And them being negative,
Yes,
because that's a different outlook than yours.
correct.
So there's a couple layers to it. Some of it, there's some things built in. So like even if you're like a 2, like what's that one thing that like, why aren't you a 1? And they can potentially name something, but even that's the next slide. I've done my present. No, but there is some of that. So you can, even though this person really hates this, like whatever it is, it's like you aren't a 1. And then that causes them to go, oh yeah, I'm not. And then I have to justify why I wasn't a total 1. But then sometimes you do have those conversations. Like I was having a conversation with somebody shortly after they relapsed. Do you think I'm sitting there going, oh, I have to guide this conversation to a positive place? Or do I have to like try to do some of this? Or do I just have to be there for that person? What do you think I did?
Supposed to be.
I was just there for that person. So obviously there are moments, especially when something like really intense and immediate happens, where you're like, I'm just gonna be here with you and we're gonna ride it out. A lot of times, even if when you have somebody who's really negative, you can get a positive out of them, but at the same time, sometimes folks are in that negative space, and guess what? That's okay. And sometimes it might not even be that's how they are all the time. They just had a bad day. So if you see them later and you were connecting in that first conversation, guess what? We can talk, and maybe you're going to have a few more positive things to say. But to your point, sometimes folks are in a state and it happens. That's not going to be the only conversation you have with them though. And so, yeah, when somebody is really intense and in that space, hold on to that space, especially if it's like, because there's nothing worse than, so you're really having a bad day. Tell me about the good things in your life. Tell me about that silver lining. No. Right? This is a general framework that works a lot of the time, but you do come across situations where it's like, okay, I'm just going to hang in there, listen to you. I will keep using the skills of paraphrasing and listening, but at the same time, we might not get to positives, and that's okay. Because remember, we're trying to connect. And if we connect, they might come back for another conversation because you cared.
You don't want another conversation.
Because your voice gonna be up if you try so hard, and that person come again, you go like, oh, yeah, I got the energy for this today. So, I mean, like, and we're all human. I mean, like, if you already had like they already put a bad taste in your mouth. Let's say you gave them a second chance. That third time, you're gonna be like, where the nearest door is?
Oh, I would talk to you, but I got to
go.
And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. But again, if we build a community that listens to each other, you're not going to be the only person who has to listen to that person. And so if you're having an off day of listening, somebody else
come on over.
And like, do you ever have that dynamic where there's that one person who's like, who gets you like that?
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody else is like, oh, I can have a conversation with that person. Guess what? That person can have that conversation. But like you identify that stuff as a group. So it's not all on you all the time because we've built a group of supportive folks. We've built a community.
Have a perspective.
Cool.
In this active listening, so saying that is the scenario.
Mhm.
Bam, it's there, right in your face. I feel that actively listening to yourself and where you are in a situation and acknowledging how you feel. If you feel violated, if you're hurt, if you're getting angry, listening to where you are. So you make a positive, a responsible decision to engage or to retreat. Because it will only hurt the situation and make that, what you say, down the road connection impossible. And actually a battle, where just bowing out, whereas I know for me, I just, in many situations, I just have to accept not getting hurt. I have to accept that they're just angry. I have to accept they just have one way of thinking, and and just instead of, and I believe me, I'm a back, but if I'm learning that if it's not going to help the community, especially where I gotta live here, I ain't up and moving. I ain't packing up and moving to Beverly Hills. I'm staying here. So, I have to still fight for the positive, wait for it even. Sit back, be quiet, and not be a part of the negative. Get drawn into it, is what I'm saying. I found that listening to myself and acknowledging just how I feel, people can get you angry. I'm angry, already. We all have, I don't have a little baby at home. My grandkids are grown and think I'm old.
You want me to bring Leanna up here next time?
Oh.
No, but
You were father who will.
You bring up a lot of good points though, because what you're saying is essentially listen to yourself too.
Yes.
And I think it's really important that we do that. Because for me, some of the warning signals and stuff's about to go off the rails. I get really tight here and I start to feel it back here. And I'm like, okay, if I react the way that I initially would love to, madness lies down that path. And so for me, I think it's like, what do I have to do to at least try to make this person feel heard? That way I can leave before something happens that I will eventually regret. Because if you're feeling that here and I'm feeling that back here, I'm not actively silent. I'm like trying to contain it. And I think it's good to know that about yourself. And in part, sometimes you're in a situation that's just not safe for you. And so you're like, well, I got to get out of here quickly because this ain't a good place. And that is okay. And then afterwards, I like to do the debrief of like, how much of this was the fact that like I'm sleep deprived because of my baby? How much of this was it was a bad day? How much of this was that was just an inherently frustrating situation? But you go back and you reflect on what was going on because you have feelings and they're valid, real, and should be respected. And just like you're trying to explore how the other person feels, doing that with yourself also is important.
Thank you very much. I'm watching people that are wanting positions to make a difference in the community. And I see potential and I see change and I see that they want to make a difference, and I'll watch them get attacked and put in scenarios that can try to bring out those. And it's hard to watch when you are, gotta cast your vote and they gotta get in there and play that we need them to play. Whatnot. So I just think I appreciate it. Learning even how to support them.
Well, it's frustrating because it feels like the outrage machine just fails. That's how the folks who are ahead are there. It's how you get the likes, it's how you get the retweets, it's how you get the engagement on the apps, all the headlines are intense, and it's like, it feels like that's what sells it. It can be really disempowering to be in that place. But I also feel that the majority of us, again, that 15, 70, we feel trapped in that. And I think actively listening to folks and speaking with, and more importantly, listening to people is how we start connecting those dots of like, we may not agree, but like, I agree. I'm tired of all the anger. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do. And that's why I think silence and listening is really powerful. Because it doesn't always work in the intense scenarios, but with that 70%, that 70% in the middle, you can do some real work. And that's really all you need to make change. Like 70%, that's a lot of people. You really only need like 40 because like not everybody votes. So again, having those conversations, where are you at? What would it take to move up one? So like when it comes to you're having the conversation with the person who wants to make the community a better place. You're like, what are the things that I can do to help? How do you feel about your campaign or your work that you're doing? Scale from 1 to 10. What would it take to move you up one? How can I fill that place for you?
I like that.
But like that's why it's simple but effective. Get a vibe of where folks are at and then ask, what do we have to do to be just one better? Because it's going to be something immediate and pressing that we can do now. You can also ask them, what does a 10 look like? Like, what does that perfect neighborhood look like? That perfect community, that world that you're trying to create with like running for office or starting an organization, whatever it is the people you're thinking about are doing. What does that 10 look like? Because that gives you something that you're reaching for. Which gets to the, instead of thinking about the past and how it used to be, it's like, we are where we are right now. I hear that you don't like the neighborhood where it's at. What we got to do to make it one number closer to that vision you have in your head? What's that 10 actually look like? And sometimes people just want to complain about the past, and that's okay. But I think there's enough people out there who want to think about that future. And so it's important to listen to the people who just want to gripe, but if you get enough of those folks who think about the future together, you start changing it.
Can we find them?
Well, most of them,
I'm being serious.
Listen, serious. Sorry, sir, I'm so sorry. I interrupted you, sorry. My over there, now you was wrong, really, she was stop, she hadn't put me. I'm sorry.
But to reach those people, you have to be active, involved, and reach out in the community to get us together.
Yeah.
All we doing is enough people doing that. Isn't enough people, us doing that?
I think a lot of us are, I mean, I know.
No, and we have a few, we talking about the same, the same people. And you get more people involved, even if it's your next door neighbor or whatever, you get those people involved, we can see change. We have complainers, but not workers, you know, and that's kind of difficult. You know how to approach that?
Part of it is this, they're complaining. What do we do to move forward? And then you get a small group of people doing those immediate steps. Some of those complainers might actually join because they're seeing stuff actually happen. If they don't, guess what? You have enough people making small changes that other folks might join up too. Think about it, we're building a snowball. Right? We're just gonna start doing stuff, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. I'll never forget, it was we had a Congressman Stokes in Cleveland. He was in front lines of the civil rights movement in Cleveland. His brother Carl was the mayor, first Black mayor of a major city. Yes, Cleveland used to be a major city. Thank you very much. But he would come into our policy class. He said, I never thought we'd see a Black president. We have one, so I don't think we've still, like, we haven't made it. But like when we were organizing in the 60s, that wasn't even possible.
That's true.
And so it is one of those things where you never feel like you have enough.
60s, I'm sorry.
Or like, sorry, 50s.
You're not. You?
No, this was the congressman from like Cleveland, Ohio. Let me tell you my secrets. Sign up for my other 16-week course. No, but he was like, we knew what we had to do because it was the right thing to do. We didn't know how effective it would be, but we knew we had to do it. And so I think there is a bit of that, like, we need to start with what we have, and we need to keep reflecting on how do we grow and how do we get more. But part of it is just got to start somewhere.
I think like my grandmother helped raise me, and it was always, you don't come to the table without a to the table with a problem without even having an idea or a solution, or even having a group. I think we have gotten to the place now that it's easier to complain and point the finger at somebody instead of saying, hey, what part did I do? Or come to the table and say, hey, this is what I have a problem with. This is what I've started to do. Can you help me? We have gotten so comfortable with pointing the finger at everybody else and then just saying, this is the problem. Somebody fix it, but I'm pissed off.
Not to point out politics, but if I complain about the other party, I don't have to do anything when I'm in office. And then when I'm not in the majority party, I still, they're still doing it wrong. That's all we have to do.
Well, I'm going door to door.
Oh, the leaders.
And let the renters know that they have a right to do. Landlords got to be more accountable. Period. If they help clean up the city, then the city will move forward because we have something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Who wanna go home to a beautiful home and then the house next door to you that someone may be renting is just falling apart? But somebody's collecting the rent. So they can be accountable. They may not have to do the work. The people that live there may have to, but they need to be on top of it to make sure that that work gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So just reaching out in your own neighborhood, make a big difference, make a big difference.
Yeah.
Every single one person.
I know.
And I mean, I get you are doing, but it is, how many other people on your street that could be helping with it? Or how many people on
Well,
the
you know
next block?
how
that
long
could be-
those blocks are, right? Only 3 people voted.
See? See?
And I was one of them.
I think on my street it was 6 and 3 came out of my household.
See, and that's, we have to reach those people.
Yeah.
They have no value for the.
Give me 1 second.
But you have,
It's
but you have
related.
you have to
Yeah.
introduce some values.
Well-
You got,
No, I'm loving the conversations that are being created from your presentation because I see connection happening here right now. And plans for an optimistic, hopeful next steps. I think it's wonderful, but I'm also looking at.
I know.
Quarter till, so I wanted you to be able to have time to finish.
Don't worry, we're not practicing with each other today, but I would much rather have a meaningful conversation that like touches on what y'all are talking about than like, hey, I can always come back for more stuff, but like, we're here in this moment right now, so like, let's take advantage of it. Cause y'all are bringing up some really important points. I got like one more slide on the structure of the conversation, but I already touched on it. For folks who hate everything or are really angry, it's like, you're not a 1, why not? Cause that gives them that pause, cause they're like, oh yeah, I'm not. So there must be at least like one possible thing. But guess what? If they are a 1 or they are a 10, like if they're a 1, I'm like, hey, if you were to tear it down and start over, like what's that thing? Like what's the most important thing to get right to start? Because sometimes they are in a we need to tear it down and start over mode. It's like, cool. Just hypothetically, like what is that one thing that you really want to get right? If they're a 10, you can start talking about like, what's the number one thing you're worried about us losing to knock us down to a 9? What's the most important stuff? Because even if they're hyper positive, it's like, what are the most important things we should be focusing on to make sure we stay with you and you stay with us? And so those are the tips and tricks. I think one of the things that helps with like active listeners for folks who don't have as much experience. So if you're like new to this or you're trying to train other folks, it can really be easy for the person doing the listening because you know what those 4 questions are. It's just 4 questions. You can memorize them. That way you have more time instead of thinking about what's the next question. You're like, I'm just going to focus on you. Because the interesting thing that happens is like when I ask, hey, what's the right number for you and why? They say, I like X, Y, and Z. So if you're an inexperienced listener, you're like, cool. They just told me, ask about X, Y, and Z. And so again, if you're not comfortable with active listening, it's really useful because they drive the conversation, not you. You're like, where are you at? Why do you feel that way? Okay, you told me what to ask next. And if it's like, if X is good neighbors, what do your neighbors do? Why do you like your neighbors? What is that like? And then you paraphrase and then you ask whatever Y and Z are. It's a really accessible way to teach people who may not be used to listening or used to conversations how to do this well. Same thing if you ask them if 8, how do we get to a 9? They say, well, if we did this, we'll get to a 9. Then you can ask follow-ups about like, why do those matter? Where can we start? What does it look like when it's fixed? To make sure I'm still checking in with you of these are the immediate steps and this is what we need to make the world look like so you feel like we've made a difference. Now, for those of you who listen a lot and you're like, still seems a bit weird, what I have found in my own practice, you get a lot more consistency in terms of like actionable ideas. So instead of staying high level and like, we need to improve the schools, it's like, I now have a better idea of how to do that. And I have a better understanding of how you think we need to do that. So even in my own work, with the work that I do, I find that it like really helps anchor me in trying to get to like, what are we actually going to do here? So we're not just talking abstractly about how we feel about the neighborhood or the organization, what it is we're trying to do.
I appreciate this. So I know I teach disabled individuals, I teach a cooking class. Sure. Teach a cooking class. Disabled people come in and we have to get through it a certain amount of time and it gets chaotic. And I have to get them focused, engaged, and that's what I actually have to do. I have to like say, okay, what can you cut those peppers up? And well, they ask me silly questions like, you know, just abstract funny stuff, and then I have to get them to focus on, well, this is why we drop the eggs and crack them and make sure the shells don't go in, and we drop them in a bowl so we can inspect it because we make mistakes, and then we pour it in the bowl and make sure and it works, and we still have a time frame. We still got to get that what was it for well, I forgot, it starts with F. This egg thing.
Yeah.
We had to get it in the oven and get it made a certain, and then they had to eat. So we had to, all of this is very, very beneficial for me to use there.
Yeah.
So we're in the shelf, you wanna look up something the next meeting?
Invite me to that one.
I'll tell you, if you would accept, I'm good at that. And
I think one of the most important parts though is like, especially if you're a seasoned listener, you notice that it does stuff for the person who's being heard, the person I'm paying attention to. Because if we keep things abstract, they tend to stay really high level and vague. For whatever reason, that scale from 1 to 10, it really brings people down. It's like, well, why is that the right number for me? I need to come up with specific reasons for why I picked this arbitrary number on the scale. And so they come up with concrete things that they actually care about. When I ask, they become like, I'm justifying the number that I picked. Sometimes the positive people don't want to say anything negative. When I say, oh, but you didn't say 10, you're a 9. So there's clearly something. It's no longer I'm critiquing this thing we're talking about. It's I'm explaining why I feel the way I do, which can sometimes open those folks up a little bit more on either extreme. It's harder when they're angry because there's an emotional charge there, but it helps and gets people thinking about the opposite perspective. Again, because we picked a number, we picked a number on a fake scale, but now I feel connected to it, so I need to justify it. And that makes it much more real and concrete for folks to process how they're feeling. And so it really is ask a guiding question, follow up on all the stuff they say, paraphrase. It's not a script, it's improv. Because if I put those 4 questions up there and I go, what are we going to talk about? You're like, I don't know, actually. Because they're going to tell me what we're going to talk about. And it can be really liberating to just be like, I know what those 4 rough questions are. I'm going to ask the first one and I'm just going to hang in with you. And we're going to talk and I'm going to pay attention to you. And I'm going to feel with you because I care. And so we're going to skip forward a couple more to get towards the end to kind of touch on some of the things that you all were talking about. We're skipping the debrief. don't worry about like, did I get it right? Did I paraphrase well in the work? Cause it really is just, I'm checking in with you. Did I make a good faith effort to listen? And if you did, even if you're wrong on some of the things you guess on, they're going to meet you halfway. And I think one of the most important things to get to what y'all are talking about, I think excuses are action items. So when you're working with organizations, they usually say, I either need more money or more people. Guess what? That's the next question we need to focus on. So what are we doing in terms of getting more people? On a scale from 1 to 10, how's that working? What would we do to move it up as a 1? What would it take to move it up 1 more point? Because now we're brainstorming, we've identified a problem. In every community, there's a core group of folks who really care, like we need more people. So let's get concrete and let's talk about like, what are we doing? It's not a 10 is what I'm hearing from this room. What do we got to do to get it to go from just 1 more point forward? And I think that's one of the, what?
Getting people involved is for us, the group is setting.
And the question is, how do we do that?
Oh, you have to know what their needs are within the community. Say if they have children, we got to have something to attract the parents with children, things of that nature.
Yeah. Then the question is, how do we figure that out?
I'm not gonna do it.
We gotta go ask him. We gotta go ask him though. Like we
That's
gotta
what
go
I
out
said,
there
that's
and
what I'm
actually
gonna do.
ask.
If
But a
they
lot-
come to the meetings and stuff, we address some of those issues. Try to get more of them to attend the meetings and then they learn more about the community and what our needs are within Ferguson.
But it's about continuing to ask those questions if we need them to attend the meeting, but they're not attending the meeting.
Exactly.
What are we doing to try to get them to attend the meeting?
Well,
How do
it
we
is,
do it better?
well, they use the social media, they use the newspapers, word of mouth, council meetings, you know, but you have to have something to attract them,
Yeah.
to get their attention.
Yeah, one more and then I'll wrap it up.
We also need active listening or effort to really understand the problem. Sometimes we're looking at the symptom, for example, homeless people down on 501 Plaza. I've been talking to them.
Mhm.
I've been going over there regularly and talking to them, and I find that they're not all homeless for the same reason.
Exactly.
The homeless people are a symptom of various problems. Vacant houses are a symptom of various causes, not all the same cause. I'm just comparing homeless people and vacant houses as in the same bucket, that there's various causes, there's a symptom you're looking at. And so therefore, one solution is not one size fits all. And if we jump to that conclusion, we're gonna create more destruction because we didn't put the effort in research, which is active listening.
You doing that,
Yeah.
you
I am.
doing that.
Yeah, and the important thing, like, I think that really touches on it. Like, there are problems out there, they are complicated. But we've got to actively listen around them, so we understand what they are and how to address them. Both externally, when you're talking about unhoused folks and vacant housing and whatnot, but even internally as a group, like, what are we doing? What we're doing isn't a 0, it's not a 10, so clearly, like, there is room for improvement, so it's like, how do we keep getting better? And then when an obstacle comes up, like, oh, they're not showing up to the meetings, now we have the conversation of what's our outreach like? How do we make that better? How do we create more opportunity? And then there's no one simple answer, but like as a group, it's important to have those conversations. Cause I find all too often folks throw out those statements and then they just kind of get bogged down and stop. Instead of having that be like the next step in the discussion or the next step in the conversation. Cause it is a complicated, there is no easy way to get more folks to the meeting. If there is, I would be having the meeting on that. I think the most important thing we can do is figure it out. And I do think listening and doing reflection around this type of work is one way to potentially get closer to doing that. So I think remember, we're just trying to make people feel heard. Because if we can do that, they might show up. It's not the only thing, but it can help.
Yeah.
I think that's my last slide again.